everyone, and finally, welcome to our presentation on using sources rhetorically in your argumentative essay. In this video, in this presentation, I'll cover some main points about using sources. So this is our agenda or outline for this presentation. Why use sources? Using sources, different ways of using sources in your writing, integrating and citing sources, and then the types of sources that I'll be asking you to use in your Unit 3 argument essay. So let's get started with the question that I'm sure many of you are asking right now. Why should we use sources in this essay, and why didn't we use sources in the previous two essays? So basically, think about the rhetoric or the purpose, audience, and message, or the rhetorical situation of your essay. You are writing with a specific purpose to achieve. You are making an argument to a particular audience in your essay. So the number one point that you're trying to make here is you have an argument that you're gonna break down into claims, and then you need to support these claims or use evidence or use data using Rebecca Jones' terminology. So some of this evidence comes from sources. So the first thing or the first reason why we use sources is to support your claims or to be part of your evidence. The second thing is to appeal to your audience. Remember what we discussed in Unit 2, that some of the rhetorical devices have to do with ethos, ethical, or establishing an authority. So when you support your claims using sources, using good sources, people of authority, since you're talking about college life and education, if you're citing some college administrators, if you're citing some researchers who did research on college admission, for example, or something about college life, this is ethos. You are establishing your credibility as a writer by citing credible and professional and people of authority on this topic. At the same time, you're providing logos, you're giving logical reasoning. You're given facts, you're given examples, you're giving statistics. So this all appeals to your audience, so makes your argument more persuasive. At the same time, gives more support to your claim. And both together will mean that you strengthen your argument using these sources. So these are the three of these reasons are interconnected, and they are connected to the overall argument and rhetorical situation of your essay. Okay? So now the more important question right now is, okay, how I'm gonna use sources. And I'm not gonna talk about the types of sources now. I'm keeping this till the end. How I'm gonna use sources? Are you asking us to create an MLA works cited page and index citation and all that? Simply, we're gonna only work on in-text citation, and I'm gonna show you now how. We have three ways of using sources. The first one is quoting. Quoting simply means that you copy and paste from the source you are using. Okay, here I have to stop and caution you. You have to quote wisely. Not everything you find in the article or the source you're reading can be quoted or should be quoted, okay? Be very specific, be very wise. Which words are very significant to use as is, okay? And economically. And if you've seen the previous video on the assignment sheet, there is a warning there, a note about plagiarism. Plagiarism happens when you rely so heavily on quoting and paraphrasing from sources without incorporating any of your voices, or any of your ideas. And at the same time, I don't want to see like 50% of your paper is in quoting and paraphrasing from sources. Remember, We use sources to support, not to replace your claim, as I'm going to explain now. So you only quote, you use the exact words from the source when the exact words are so significant, so powerful, so important that replacing them or paraphrasing them may not have the same effect on your reader. Remember, you're writing to an audience to achieve a specific purpose and to make a valid argument. Always keep that in your mind while deciding on which words to quote. Exact words are from an authority figure. Like if you are citing a professor on something that's related to college life, this is an authority figure. So whatever they are saying on that topic might be very important and will give bigger weight and bigger value and bigger support to your claim. Exact words support your argument. So the whatever the authority figure is saying is very relevant and is very supportive to your argument. And then exact words contradict your argument. And this is going to be more for the rebuttal that we're going to talk more about next week. Be careful, and this is a warning I said earlier. Quotes don't replace your claim. You use them to support your claim. What does this mean? It means that when you write, you don't start with I don't suggest that you start with something like this. Okay? No, you should start with your claim and then support it with the code. But this is a good example of using quotations. So consumers also believe, and then here we have a specific quotation from this source. Organic food has more nutritional value because the breeding and growth of organic food, for instance chicken, is being done naturally without involving any use of hormones and chemicals. And then here we have the explanation. Therefore, when people think of the word organic, they have thoughts of personal health because the food is not treated with hormones and chemicals, even though there is very little evidence supporting this idea. So here, the student here decided to remember, this is just an excerpt from a paragraph. This is not a complete paragraph. So there was something before about the student's claim, and then they use that quote from this article, and then they explain or the warrant, as we read in Rebecca Jones' article, that connects the claim to the evidence. So this is part of an evidence that supports the claim that, or this is what people might think about organic food. Another example here, okay, so here, referring back to scientist Robin Dunbar, he makes an intriguing statement in saying that, and then they are using that quote from that source, okay? So these are different ways to incorporate or to quote from the sources. Pick a very strong statement, sentence, or a phrase or anything that's very relevant and very powerful in supporting your argument and incorporate it as is. The second way of using sources is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing simply means that you use your own words and your own sentence structure. There is a huge misunderstanding and misconception about paraphrasing among students. Students think that if I have a sentence and just use synonyms to replace some of the words in the sentence and use it as is, this means I have paraphrased. No. No, this is not paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means you read 2-3 sentences, you understand them, and then you put them in your own words and your own sentence structure. Okay? So you have to keep the original meaning because we're trying to be ethical and we are trying to maintain our integrity as writers by keeping the original meaning from the source. And you have to cite, and we're going to talk in a while about how to cite this. Let's look at an example. Though there is much talk debating between ebooks and physical books, one thing is clear. Ebooks are more convenient. So this is the claim. It's very clear, very straightforward, it's very concise, it's debatable, perfect. Look at that. So this is the claim. Now, according to Scott Stein, a journalist and writer himself, ebooks are perfect for on-the-go people. Their low-cost pricing, instantaneous download speed, and compact size have enticed many readers to invest. So what's happening here is the student read something in Scott Stein's article, and then they understood that, and then they paraphrased what they're saying or what they read in their own language, in their own words. And if you notice here, sorry, so this is the paraphrase here. If you notice here, according to Scott Stein, so this is the author of the source the student is using. And then remember we said that we're used to appeal to the reader by citing people of authority or authority figures. So here, the student wants to show the reader that Scott Stein is an authority figure, is somebody with credibility and integrity. So a journalist and writer, this means that they are an authority figure when it comes to publishing physical versus ebooks. Okay? So, and then they paraphrased what the author said, and then they cited using their last name, as I'm gonna show you in a minute. Okay, so this is paraphrase, and here is another example. You can read this. I'm gonna just leave it here on the screen, and then you can read it. Okay, so here we have this citation, the last names of these authors, and the student used that to show that this idea, even though it doesn't have quotation marks around them, sorry, around this idea or these sentences, it means that this idea is from that source. It's not the student's idea, it's from a different source, okay? So this is another way of using the source or paraphrase. The last one, this is not the easiest, but summarizing. The name is very straightforward. You read a long passage or maybe a whole source, and then you summarize it in a very shorter version. So if it's a whole article, maybe you summarize it in 1 or 2 sentences. If it's a passage or a paragraph, maybe you just summarize it in 1 sentence. Again, you have to keep the original meaning because this is integrity and credibility of your integrity as a writer. And then you cite again because this is not your idea. This is not your original idea. This is something that comes from that source. Okay? Now, I talked several times about citing. So what does this mean? What do we mean by integrating and citing sources? And how to make sure that our sources are used rhetorically and nicely and well integrated into our text without standing out, and it's like the reader is like, I have no idea what this sentence is doing here or what this quote is doing here. Okay, so let's look together. So let's look at this example. Okay, so we have the author's name, argues, and then we have a quotation from that source, and then we have a number at the end of the sentence or between parentheses. What exactly is happening here? So that's the author's name, okay? So, and as you can see, it's the full name, first and last name. And then we have what we call a reporting verb. It can be argues, it can be claims, it can be finds, whatever, okay? Or you can say according to, and then you put the author's name. And then here, if you're going to quote, you have to use, you see, the quotation marks to mark that anything between these quotation marks is not your word. This is not your language. This is Aaron Ben Zeev's words, okay? So for quotation, you have to use these quotation marks at the beginning and end of the quotation. And then between parentheses here, this is the page number where where the reader can find that quote, okay? If it's a newspaper, if it's a journal article, normally you'll find a page number. If it's something online and doesn't have page numbers, you just end the and put a period and that's it, okay? Something you have to be careful about. The page number is between parentheses before the period that ends the sentence. A very common mistake that I see in students writing is that they put the period to end the sentence and then they put the parentheses with the page number or the source after that. No, that's not correct. Correct way of doing it is the page number is part of the sentence, so it remains before it's placed before the period, as you can see here. Okay? Sometimes you don't quote, sometimes you paraphrase. Okay, so let's see how that works. You have different ways. If you look at the previous examples we used with paraphrase, we can mention the author's name in the sentence itself. So according to X, according to Ellison et al., like the source we have here. Or here, the student just paraphrased the idea, and to mark that or to signal that this idea is not his or her original idea, is from a source, is from Ellison et al. So they put here between parentheses the author's last name. Et al. Means that it has more than 3 authors, okay? That source has more than 3 authors. And then the page number, okay? So in paraphrasing, we always put the page number. So in paraphrase, put the author's last name plus the page number, okay? Now, what kind of sources are you going to use in this paper, in your essay? I'm not asking for anything academic. I'm not asking for journal articles or anything like that. This is going to be what you do in 1020, not in this course. For this paper, you can use any of these things. You can use newspapers, New York Times, The Atlantic, Washington Post, whatever. Media websites, anything like CNN, Fox, whatever website, Reuters, whatever media website you can use. Of course, you can definitely use local ones like WSFA here in Montgomery. University websites, since you are talking about college and university life and education, you can definitely use information on university websites in your as one of your sources. Chronicles of Higher Education, this is an Inside Higher Education. These are 2 publications particularly about college life and education in the United States. So these can be excellent sources for you on so many of the topics that I've seen in your discussion posts, okay? And then the last one is AUM library database, and I'm gonna show you in a minute how to use AUM database to search for good sources to use in your essays. You will need, as you've read in the assignment sheet, you will need 3 sources, okay? So this is it. I'm asking just for 3 sources to use in your essay. Let me show you very quickly how to use AUM website, the library. From my AUM portal, you see here you have the library. If you click on that, it says AUM library webpage. This is going to take you to AUM library so you can do your search. This is it, okay? So you see here, quick search, books and ebooks, database and articles, and journal title. We'll just do a quick search for your essay. And always mark full text so you can read the entire text, okay? Not just a brief abstract or anything. Let's say, for example, you're talking about college admission, okay? This is your topic. This is what you want to learn more about. And you'll click on search. If you are accessing the database from off campus, it will ask you first for your email and password, the same AUM email and password you use for everything on AUM website, okay? Because I accessed the library website earlier today, so it's not asking me for it now, but for you, it's gonna do that, okay? Here, you have so many. How many sources do we have here? Holy moly, you see that? 164,897 sources. Of course, we don't need all that. So maybe you can, as you can see here, the search starts from 1817 to 2020. Maybe you are just focusing on something that's very recent, so 2015 to 2020, and then enter. It's going to update that, and you'll see the dramatic change in the number. You see how the number dropped to 58,000. Of course, it's still a big number, but of course, this term is kind of broad. College admission can mean anything. Maybe you can say, and test scores. Okay, so this will narrow it down for, you see here, we only have 2,446 articles. So you can just start reading, start looking at the titles, and then if something that catches your eye, or it's like you think that this is really relevant, okay, then relevant to your topic, then click on that, click on the title here, and then here it will tell you these are the authors, and they are from Georgetown University Center on Education. So this means that it's a very reputable institution, and these are authority figures that you can use their piece. And then here you have the abstract or the summary of the whole essay, okay? And then in order to get the complete, here it is, availability. If you click here, sometimes you'll see this as a PDF. You can just download the PDF file to your computer, or here you see it gets you to the article, and then here download full text. And then you can download this and save it to your computer. Okay, so you have a lot of interesting and exciting and relevant and credible sources here at AUM website, the library database, okay? So you can start there, you can start at a different website, but make sure that you use credible websites, not just anything that you find on the internet, because we all know that the internet has a lot of uncredible and really bad sources for you. Okay, I hope this presentation has showed you why we use sources, different ways to use sources in your essay, how to cite sources, and where to find good sources for your essay. I'll be happy to answer any more questions you may have, and let's start writing.